Hello students, welcome once again to my YouTube channel. Today we are going to learn another lesson from your NCERT English. Honeycomb, Unit number 4. Before you read, this is a story about an honest and hard-working old couple and their pet dog. The neighbors are troublesome and the dog dies as sad that the spirit of the dog gives solace and support to his master in unexpected ways. Actually, this story is a Japanese story, a folktale, which underscores values such as honesty, compassion, diligence, etc., with a hint of magical realism. The spirit of the dog is the old couple's make-believe determination to get past personal setbacks and begin anew. Now let's read the story. The ashes that made trees bloomed. Part 1. In the good old days of the daimyos, there lived an old couple whose only pet was a little dog. Having no children, they loved it as though it were a baby. The old dame made it a cushion of blue craft and a mealtime macaw, for that was its name, would sit on it as snug as any kid. The kind people fed the pet with tidbits of fish from their own chopsticks and all the boiled rice it wanted. Thus treated the dumb creatures, loved its protectors like a being with a soul. Here the meaning of daimyos in 19th century Japan, wealthy landowners. Snug, comfortable, a being with a soul, like a human child, showing emotions. Let's continue reading. The old man, being a rice farmer, went daily with a hoe or spade into the fields, working hard from morning until 10 to summer, as the sun is cold, had gone down behind the hills. Every day the dog followed him to work, never once harming the white heron that walked in the footsteps of the old man to pick off the worms. For the old fellow was patient and kind to everything that had life, and often turned up a sod on purpose to give food to the birds. Turn off meaning duck off, on purpose, intentionally. One day the dog came running to him, putting his paws against his legs and motioning with his head to some spot behind. The old man at first thought his pet was only playing and did not mind it, but the dog kept on whining and running to and fro for some minutes. Then the old man followed the dog a few yards to a place where the animal began a lively scratching. Thinking it was possibly a buried bone or bit of fish, the old man struck his hoe in the earth, when, lo, a pile of gold gleamed before him. Gleamed meaning shone, glittered. Thus in an hour the old couple were made rich. The good souls bought a piece of land, made a feast for their friends, and gave plentifully to their poor neighbors. As for the dog, they petted him till they nearly smoothed him with kindness. Now in the same village there lived a wicked old man and his wife, not a bit sensitive and kind, who had always kicked and scolded all dogs. Whenever any passed their house, hearing of their neighbors' good luck, they coaxed the dog into their garden and set before him bits of fish and other dainties, hoping he would find treasures for them. But the dog, being afraid of the cruel pair, would neither eat nor move. Coax meaning pursued, entice. Dainties, tasty food. Let's continue. Then they dragged him out of doors, taking a spade and hoe with them. No sooner had the dog got near a pine tree growing in the garden than he began to paw and scratch the ground, as if a mighty treasure lay beneath. "Quick, wife, hand me the spade and hoe," cried the greedy old fool, as he danced with joy. Then the covetous old fellow with a spade, and the old crone with a hoe began to dig. But there was nothing but a dead kitten, the smell of which made them drop their tools and shut their noses. Furious at the dog, the old man kicked and beat him to death, and the old woman finished the work by nearly chopping off his head with sharp hoe. They then flung him into the hole and heaped the earth over his carcass. Covetous meaning greedy, crone, old woman, old man's wife. Here in the story. Flung meaning threw, carcass, dead body. The owner of the dog heard of the death of his pet, and mourning for him as if he had been his own child, went at night under the pine tree. He set up some bamboo tubes in the ground, such as are used before tombs, in which he put fresh flowers. Then he laid a cup of water and a tray of food on the grave, and burned several costly sticks of incense. He mourned a great while over his pet, calling him many dear names, as if he were alive. That night the spirit of the dog appeared to him in a dream and said, "Cut down the pine tree over my grave and make from it a mortar for your rice pastry and a meal for your bean sauce." Mortar meaning bowl. So the old man chopped down the tree and cut out of the middle of the trunk a section about 2 feet long. With great labor, partly by fire, partly by the chisel, he scraped out a hollow place as big as a small bowl. He then made a long-handled hammer of wood, such as is used for pounding rice. When New Year's time drew near, he wished to make some rice pastry. When the rice was all boiled, Granny put it into the mortar. The old man lifted his hammer to pound the mass into dough, and the blows fell heavy and fast, till the pastry was all ready for baking. Suddenly the whole mass turned into a heap of gold coins. When the old woman took the hand mill and filling it with beans began to grind, the oil dropped like rain. Pounding meaning crushing, grinding. Meanwhile the envious neighbor peeped in at the window when the boiled beans were being ground. "Goody me!" cried the old hag as he saw each dripping of sauce turning into yellow gold, until in a few minutes the tube under the mill was full of shining mass of gold. So the old couple were rich again. The next day the stingy and wicked neighbor came and borrowed the mortar and magic mill. They filled one with boiled rice and the other with bean. Then the old man began to pound and the woman to grind. But at first blow and turn, the pastry and sauce turned into a foul mass of worms. Still more angry at this, they chopped the mill into pieces to use as firewood. Stingy, miserly. Comprehension check. Why did neighbors kill the dog? Mark the right item. The old farmer and his wife loved the dog. E. Because it helped them in their day-to-day work. B. as if it was their own baby, see as they were kind to all living beings. Number 2. When the old couple became rich, they A. gave the dog better food, B. invited their greedy neighbors to a feast, C. lived comfortably and were generous towards their poor neighbors. 3. The greedy couple borrowed the milk and the mortar to make A. rice pastry and bean sauce, B. magic ash to win rewards, C. a pile of gold. Part 2. Not long after that, the good old man dreamed again, and the spirit of the dog spoke to him, telling him how the wicked people had burned the milk made from the pine tree. Take the ashes of the milk, sprinkle them on the withered trees, and they will bloom again, said the dog spirit. Withered, bare and dry. The old man awoke and went at once to his wicked neighbor's house, where he found the miserable old pair sitting at the edge of their square fireplace, in the middle of the floor, smoking and spinning. From time to time they warmed their hands and feet with the blaze from some bits of the milk, while behind them lay a pile of the broken pieces. The good old man humbly asked for the ashes, though the covetous couple turned up their noses at him and scolded him as if he were a thief. They let him fill his basket with the ashes. Turned up their noses, meaning treated him with contempt. On coming home, the old man took his wife into the garden. It being winter, their favorite cherry tree was bare. He sprinkled a pinch of ashes on it, and lo, it sprouted blossoms until it became a cloud of pink blooms which perfumed the air. News of this filled the village, and everyone ran out to see the wonder. The covetous couple also heard the story, and gathering up the remaining ashes of the milk, kept them to make withered trees blossoms. The kind old man, hearing that his lord, the daimyo, was to pass along the high road near the village, set out to see him. Taking his basket of ashes, as the train approached, he climbed out into an old withered cherry tree that stood by the wayside. Train, procession. Now in the days of the daimyos, it was the custom when their lord passed by for all the loyal people to shut up their high windows. They even pasted them fast with a slip of paper, so as not to commit the impertinence of looking down on his lordship. All the people along the road would fall upon their hands and knees and remain prostrate until the procession passed by, prostrate, lying on the ground, face downward. The train drew near. One tall, competent man marched ahead, crying out to the people by the way, "Get down on your knees, get down on your knees," and everyone kneeled down while the procession was passing. Suddenly the leaders of the van caught sight of the aged man out in the tree. He was about to call out to him in an angry tone, but seeing he was such an old fellow, he pretended not to notice him and passed him by. So when the daimyo's palanquin drew near, the old man, taking a pinch of ashes from his basket, scattered it over the tree. In a moment it burst into blossoms. Palanquin, meaning royal van or cart. The delighted daimyo ordered the train to be stopped and got out to see the wonder. Calling the old man to him, he thanked him and ordered presents of silk robes, sponge cake, fans, and other rewards to be given him. He even invited him to his castle, gleefully, happily. So the old man went gleefully home to share his joy with his dear old wife. But when the greedy never heard of it, he took some of the magic ashes and went out on the highway. There he waited until a daimyo's train came along, and instead of kneeling down like the crowd, he climbed a withered cherry tree. When the daimyo himself was almost directly under him, he threw a handful of ashes over the tree, which did not change a particle. The wind blew the fine dust into the noses and eyes of the daimyo and his wife. Such sneezing and choking! It spoiled all the pomp and dignity of the procession. The man whose business it was to cry, "Get down on your knees," seized the old fool by the collar, dragged him from the tree, and tumbled him and his ass basket into the ditch by the road. Then, beating him soundly, he left him for death. A particle, meaning even a little bit, sees caught. Green here, healthy, active, and prosperous. Okay. Thus, the wicked old man died in the mud, but the kind friend of the dog dwelt in peace and plenty, and both he and his wife lived to a green old age. The story written by William Elliot Griffis, a Japanese tale. Here we have some exercises working with the text. Answer the following questions. The old farmer is a kind person. What evidence of his kindness do you find in the first two paragraphs? What did the dog do to lead the farmer to the hidden gold? How did the spirit of the dog help the farmer first? How did it help him next? Why did the daimyo reward the farmer but punish his neighbor for the same act? We have so many exercises here. But let me just explain to you about this story. Let me summarize it for you. See, in the old days of the daimyos in Japan, there lived an old farmer with his wife. They had a little pet dog whom they loved like their own child. One day the dog found the farmer a treasure in the field. Their neighbors, another old couple, were wicked and greedy, just the opposite. They wanted the dog to find a treasure for them too, but the dog showed them the spot where a dead kitten lay buried. In a fit of anger, they killed the dog. See? The spirit of the dog came in its master's dreams and helped his master in various ways. First, the dog spirit helped him get a tub of gold. Second, the spirit of the dog asked the old man to take the ashes of the meal and sprinkle them on the withered tree. The old man did so, and the withered tree bloomed. Soon the kind old man heard that his lord, the daimyo, was to pass near the village. He set out to see him, taking his basket of magic ash along. He climbed a withered cherry tree that stood by the wayside. When the daimyo's palanquin drew near, he scattered a pinch of ashes over the tree, and it burst into blossoms. The daimyo was much pleased. The farmer's was richly rewarded for his wonderful egg. The greedy never heard of it. He too took the ashes and climbed a withered cherry tree. When the daimyo was under the tree, the greedy man scattered a handful of ashes over the tree. The wind blew the fine dust into the nose and eyes of the daimyo and his wife. The greedy man was dragged, given a sound beating, and thrown into a ditch, where he died. So the moral of the story is the virtuous old couple is rewarded. The virtue is rewarded while the vices are punished.